It's the Anfield Wrap on Radio City Talk. Neil Atkinson, Danny Austin, Melissa Reddy and Gareth Roberts with you for the next hour or so as you're listening to this. We're pre-recording this and it's simultaneously being Facebook Live, which is just scenes, to be brutally honest with you. It doesn't get more exciting than that sort of stuff. This is how multimedia will be coming these days. But look at Danny Austin with his old school microphone that he's having to speak into there. It's all very exciting. He's got a look at John Motson about him. Opening questions from Mitchell C. And it asks this: which former or old club do you miss from the Premier League the most? So a side that's gone down in recent years. Who do you think really should be back in the Premier League but isn't? We get a variant on this all the time. What former or old club do you miss the most, Danny Austin?
I'm going to go Portsmouth. Portsmouth were always a laugh when they spent all that money and ended up down the Swanee, really. Always winning something or about to be relegated and ended up staying up. And we always beat them, I felt like, as well. So yeah, really nice one to have. Okay,
Portsmouth, bit of a big trek, but you know, I can see the point. It's an overnighter. Mel, who are you going with?
Leeds. Just because, I don't know, it all went so
Leeds.
So quickly. Yeah, it was. They had some good players. It was fun watching them.
Dirty Leeds. Have you ever been to Ellen Road?
No.
I can't believe you've said Leeds on a show. I can't swear. It's absolutely ridiculous. This is going out, you know.
This was pre-planned answer.
Oh man alive, Leeds. Everyone always has that thing that, you know, wouldn't it be nice for certain sides to go down, learn some humility, come back up, then we get to play them, all that sort of stuff. I hope we never, ever, ever have to play them in the Premier League again. Give me a cup away, and I'd be the most excited man in the world as a one-off, but the idea that they're a regular presence back in the Premier League with that ground in the middle of absolutely nowhere, grey as anything, brutal stuff. Gareth, this Leeds shout's wild. Who are you going with?
I am going for Blackburn Rovers.
Solid away.
Solid away. We always get the whole end. We always sell out the whole end. It's only down the road. Nice pints, I think, in the Golden Cup. And it's just one of them that all your mates go to as well. I mean, you know, some of my mates, like, they don't go to loads of aways.
Yeah.
And it takes some persuading to get them to go. But Blackburn, they'll always do it. And there's nothing better than going to the match with your mates. That's what it's all about. I've since made loads of mates with the Anfield Wrap, obviously. I like going the aways with yourself and other people. But, you know, me mates have known for years and years and years.
The lads back from when it was just What a State in Heighton.
That's the ones.
When you were growing up together on the Moss.
Yeah, anyone on the Moss. And that's it, yeah. Those lads, they'll come to Blackburn away. So Blackburn.
Okay, solid, I like it indeed. All right, then we're going to have a chat about the Reds at Derby, and we'll start with the debutants. Mel, and we'll start with the goalkeeper. It's going to be an interesting one this weekend, and we'll talk about that later in the show. But the first thing that you did notice when you were in the ground, when you were watching the game, yes, he didn't have a load to do. Yeah, he was very assured in what he had to do. Mostly there was one ball that came across, but he takes such a high position.
Yeah, absolutely. It was the maddest thing watching his first pre-season training over in America, because it was quite clear his starting position, and you wondered, is it just because it was a training session? And then they simulated gameplay, and it was exactly the same from him. And it's a very clear tactic. It's what he did at Mainz to enable the team to play higher up the pitch, keep a high line, and ensure that you've got control of the game all the way through the pitch. And that's obviously a big thing. It's why he was brought in. Because of the characteristics he has, the way Liverpool want to play, they want to be so commanding and they want to conquer everything. I think it makes sense to have a goalkeeper that also embodies that blueprint.
Danny, he very much commanding is sort of the thing that's implied at the minute. You haven't got to see him be commanding. He didn't have enough to do to command, but it is that, you know, he is forcing them up the pitch. He is, you know, there's some points there, but he was certainly close to the centre circle than he was to the edge of his own area, and it is a marked difference. You can see why he's been brought in. You can also see why this is another example of playing football in the red. It's another example of taking a few risks, because, you know, someone at some point will try and do him from 60-70 yards. You can already envisage that happening. If I'm Robert Snodgrass, I'm staying late behind training this week, and I'm wondering on the off chance that he plays. But it's just this marked difference, and that's the first thing that you took from it.
I found it quite unnerving at first, seeing someone stand that far up the pitch. Like, we're used to Mignolet, like, not really coming off his line even for crosses and stuff. So it's like we found two goalkeepers who are completely different,
diametrically opposed.
Yeah, they're the complete opposite of each other. So it was, and that one where he clipped over the defender as well. Watching a goalkeeper play a nice pass was like, can this happen? We allowed this? Is this against the rules? So I liked it. And it does allow a big change in the way the other 10 play. It's not just a case of we need a good goalkeeper because this one isn't very good, so let's buy this fella. It changes the tactics of the entire 11 and the entire way we play football.
Neil, you've made a great point about he didn't really have much to do, but it's the message it sends out. And if you listen to Darren Bent and some of the other players after the game, they were all talking about this swagger and this arrogance and just the fact that before you even start anything, you get this impression that they've got too much quality, they've got too much belief, and you've got too much to do to get beyond them. And I think that's really what he does. He is so confident and assured. Even when you speak to him, just when you see how he carries and goes about his business. And I think he will make errors. Every goalkeeper makes errors. Peter Cech makes errors.
Every footballer makes errors.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's not like we've got this absolutely flawless, faultless, looks-wise, yes, but goalkeeper. He will make mistakes, but he will allow the team to play the way they want.
Next thing on this one, I'll move on to you on this one, Gareth, is Grujic helped, I felt, by the two around him. And it was interesting that Henderson looked to be the highest of the three for much of the time. But again, the phrase neat and tidy, it's sort of what you want from it. We all want, if he bangs one in from 25 yards, that's what we're talking about, and he looks great. But neat and tidy is the essence of what you basically want from a 20-year-old making his full debut for Liverpool. Neat and tidy is step one. Neat and tidy in 6'3" helps.
Yeah, he didn't look out of place, did he, at all? He slotted straight in. He was slightly concerning me, if I'm honest, in terms of I thought he could go. I thought he was throwing himself into tackles, which normally I'm right behind, but I just thought on his debut, he looked a bit over-eager to impress. And I seen the referee have a word with him and say, one more. And then he commits one more. He gets the yellow card, and everyone was going mad because I'm not sure everyone saw that little word from the ref, but I'm pretty sure that yellow he got was for persistent foul. And then after getting the yellow, he continued to still do the same. And I thought, hang on, lad, you've got to manage yourself here and realise that you could go. But that aside, he showed some lovely touches, neat and tidy, as you say. Nothing amazing, I didn't think. I've seen people sort of waxing lyrical about the performance from him. I just thought it was a solid debut. I thought you could see why he's perhaps not got the time that some people thought he might do on the pitch so far. But as the season goes, I'm sure he'll get more opportunities. But I don't really see him being in the first 11 anytime soon. He'll probably have to wait now until maybe the next League Cup game, and with that being Tottenham, maybe not even then, because maybe Klopp goes stronger with the team. So I don't know. Yeah, he's rounded about. He's made a good start. He's solid enough. You can bring him off the bench. No one's going to have any problem with that, probably including him.
I quite liked as well that he made a couple of mistakes and didn't seem fazed by it in the slightest. There was one towards the end of the second half where he was near our own penalty area and ended up getting caught. But he didn't go into his shell after any of it. He gave the ball away a couple of times, but he was still asking for it and stuff. So I think it shows that he's only 20, isn't he?
Yeah.
It shows the maturity in his first game that I think bodes well, especially if he's not going to be starting every week, because he's not going to have the opportunity to learn on the job that quickly. So the fact that he was brave enough to keep having a go and go forward, I think was a good omen for the future.
What's interesting for me on this one at the moment, Mel, is this idea that there's with reference to Grujic and Ajaria, who comes on, who I thought again it was interesting he came on. It was interesting he was on the bench against Chelsea. That you do feel as though the two of them, in the best possible sense, are in competition with each other a little bit. And I don't think I wouldn't have seen that coming before pre-season, but you do sort of get the impression that there's chance still to come back into that midfield, and that therefore you're looking at one of those two is going to get the odd opportunity here and there. But it could be either of them is what I'm sort of driving at. And Ajaria looks like the one who's going to be a little bit more fancy, and Grujic just looks like he's going to be the one who's going to be a little bit more tidy.
Yeah, Ajaria. And I think this is where Klopp always makes a point. If you impress in training, he will reward you, and that's practically what happened. He looked really good, impressed everyone. Some of the coaches at the academy are surprised by how quickly his stock has skyrocketed, because they didn't see it coming either. And it's just basically applying yourself. I think both of them will sort of get, maybe Grujic will get more opportunity. He's obviously played professional footballs, got a full season behind him, been the star of a team. And what he needs to learn now is all the work that goes with being, he's got absolutely lovely composure, touches, he's timing of everything in an attacking sense, but very little awareness still of all the other things happening around him, and that's why I think there's still a lot of work for him to do, and he knows it himself, a lot of development to do before he can actually stake a claim regularly for one of those midfield places. Because if you look at that midfield three, Wijnaldum, Lallana, and Henderson, and the amount of work they do to maintain their superiority in a game, I think they're both very exciting players, but this is basically just a period of learning for them this season.
Massively so, I think. But the other thing that I noticed as well from this point of view, a period of learning, Gareth, was the old heads. So before we get on to Klavan, and they're old heads in a different sense. Lucas has got over 200 Liverpool appearances, Klavan hasn't got 10. But Lucas, again, it's interesting that Henderson played higher than Grujic when they were on. You got the impression he was the one who had a bit more licence, which is a shift from holding the midfield. He's got Lucas behind him. Lucas has got tons of information in his football, both with his talking and his passes, and how he's dictating shape and the ball, putting the ball onto people's feet, which says, do that next. And I thought I think we'll see more of Lucas in the League Cup and maybe in the early stage of the FA Cup around these sorts of lads, because they're the perfect lads to play with.
Yeah, that's what you want, isn't it? I mean, when you are coming into a side like that, when you make, it was 7 changes, wasn't it, for that side, that derby, and that in theory could be a problem. There could be a lack of cohesion, all the usual things when you make that many changes. But having those lads in there to almost talk you through it, to show what you do, and to, as you say, knitting it together in a way where you know where you should be, you know what you should be doing, everyone's comfortable. I think that's that's a good thing to be able to walk into it and get your time in the team, and I think that's a really encouraging thing about Liverpool against Derby for me, that we can make that many changes. And people can talk about how poor Derby were, and they were poor. They're not a great side. They're not having a good season. All those caveats, but nevertheless, how many times have you seen Liverpool underperform in a game like that where you've made changes? I mean, Phil Blundell wrote a good piece on the site, on our new website in the week, talking about, when we've made that many changes in the past, Liverpool have been poor. You go back to when Brendan Rodgers first is in charge, and I think we play Swansea in the League Cup. He makes a load of changes. The team looks awful now when you look back at it. And they're beaten, and they're soundly beaten. So, to make 7 changes and to soundly beat a team away from home, keep a clean sheet, they're all positive things, because you can only beat what's in front of you, the old cliche. But to make 7 changes and then beat them so well as well is hugely encouraging for the future.
It's worth pointing that out, I think, Danny, that you shouldn't be too complacent about that sort of thing. It goes back to Phil's piece I thought was good, but it was you can say, well, we haven't gone out on that stage of the League Cup for X amount of time, but it was the fact that we made it look pretty, the dominance that I want to come on to talk about in part 2, that the Derby players referred to, that Melissa referred to earlier on. There was that general feeling of, these are better than us, and they're going to win this game eventually, and they're going to win it comfortably. And that emanated. I felt it emanated from the first whistle, but it's really there from when Klavan scores.
You're right, and I think it's a combination of the different things. I think tactically, it was set up to completely overwhelm teams from the beginning. Now we push very high up the pitch, we hold the ball high up the pitch, we don't really let them break out very much into our half in possession. So I think that probably puts teams in a bit of a poor mindset from the beginning. And then there's the whole bravado that we seem to have about us at the minute in terms of mentality as opposed to tactics, where the manager doesn't seem like he's ever going to allow them to lose a game of football. The players seem like they don't ever want to lose a game of football ever again, in what they're saying in pre and post match interviews and stuff. So I think it's a combination of the attitude that they go out with, but also the way we set up. And we have dispatched 2 teams that we should dispatch quite easily. We've done it well, but as you say, in the past, even under Benitez, we struggled in them kind of games because we'd be bringing lads in who you knew had absolutely no hope and were just backups. Whereas these seem like players that will be of use to us and in the future will go on to be first-team players.
OK, this is the Anfield Wrap on Radio City Talk. After the break, we're going to talk about that dominance that Liverpool have been able to show and taking it into the whole game as well. Back in a second. Before the break, when Mel's just chatting away, she's upset with Gareth for some image stuff. I can't quite understand it. Social media is overwhelming this week on Radio City Talk. I mean, you said, Mel, that the Derby players come out after the game and they say, as soon as Liverpool touched the pitch, looking at them in the tunnel, they just felt we're going to come off second best today. They had an aura around them and an assurance, and basically being the dominant force in football matches is now what will define Liverpool between now and Christmas. It's going to define this entire season, that between now and Christmas we face Manchester United at home, we go to Goodison on the 17th of December, and then we play Manchester City. And I think that's even at New Year. That is New Year on New Year's Eve, currently, before it gets moved for television. So that's it now. All the other games are about Liverpool coming up against sides where on paper the bookmakers will have Liverpool down as favourites, whether they're home or away in these games. They're going to be the favourites when they kick off, and it's how they can keep that aura, keep that dominance up, how they can keep playing to that level, and that's the key question, isn't it?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is belief. They know now that they can be the authoritative side regardless of who they face. When you're able to do it against Chelsea, Arsenal, Tottenham, especially away from home, it does give you that sense that what we're working on, what we've been putting in on the training pitch, it is coming to fruition. We are getting somewhere with this, and then you persist with it. The struggle for Liverpool, and if we touch on the Burnley game, there wasn't anything wrong with the way Liverpool approached that game. They still had all the ball. They were creating chances. The issue was they were superior, but the issue was their patience. They started playing with desperation.
It's partially because they conceded.
Yeah, absolutely. The goal unsettles them and then promotes this panic where they feel, oh gosh, we've now got to get ourselves back in the game immediately, which they actually don't have to do because there's still a full football match to be played. So it's these kind of things that you need to learn. And then at Derby, they're superior at the beginning, but the goal doesn't come immediately. They've got to wait a bit for the goal, and that's what they need to realise. Eventually, it will come. Their quality shows, and because they create so much, chances are that they will get joy. I think in terms of just their assertiveness, it's been absolutely astounding. There is no question that whatever game they're going to go in, they're going to be the superior side. They're going to command the game, the ball, the space, the fight for second balls, all these kind of things. And I think it's encouraging to see them do it not only in the Premier League but also in the League Cup.
It's the attitude first and foremost, I think, Danny, and it is the feeling that not just that they're the better side, but that they're going to demonstrate that they're the better side, as Mel's saying. They're going to do it with territory, they're going to do it with possession, they're going to do it in every aspect of the game. And I think that they could occasionally come unstuck with that sort of thing, not just with Burnley, but they could come unstuck against a side that's around as good as us at some point, or against a side that we would say on paper isn't as good as Liverpool. It wouldn't surprise me if we lose one game 5-2 this season. I'm just something like that. But it is that attitude that's the first step towards being able to do this every week.
Yeah, I agree, but the crucial thing, I think, is when it goes wrong, because it is going to go wrong at some point. We're going to get beaten by some team, or we're going to draw between now and Christmas. Yeah. Or even if we draw with Swansea next week, or if we draw with Hull tomorrow, and it goes for both players and supporters, everyone can't be completely and utterly deflated by it right away, because then the whole momentum goes. If you just accept that there are results that are going to happen and you can't win every game, you can't dominate every game, then you pick yourself up a lot more easily the next week. Whereas if you expect Liverpool to go out and start steamrolling teams week in, week out, every single game, the wheels are going to fall off one day, and then we're all going to be sat there, and it's going to be back to from winning the league to we're the worst team on earth, where's the leaders, and all them arguments will pipe back up again. So I think everyone needs to remain calm. If tomorrow, for example, it's 0-0 at 60 minutes, everyone can't be getting frustrated and thinking, well, usually we should be steamrolling these. That's what's happened. We did that with Chelsea. Why can't we do it to Hull at home? Everyone needs to get a grip, basically, if it starts to go wrong.
But it is the difficulty, and between all these attitudes, we're going to talk later on about the manager wanting them to be angry, but then simultaneously he wants them to have ice in the veins when they get around the penalty area. There's actually a contradiction there. He wants them to be a whirling dervish for the first 2/3 of the pitch, and then suddenly be the coolest men alive. Yeah. But there's a contradiction there as well, that we want them to have a certain attitude of we're going to go out and we're going to absolutely boss it, but then we've got to accept that sometimes it'll be difficult to boss, or you might get to 60. And this is football, Gareth, and this is why football's a brilliant, complicated, simple, blah blah blah. That's why it's the game it is.
I think so much of it's played in your head, though, and what
hugely.
And what I love about Klopp and what Liverpool are doing now is that there's a pervading sense that they're all going out there actually believing that they can beat anyone. And that's brilliant. And what I liked about Klopp's press conference this week is he said, games are going to be difficult. And also he said, the way we think about this now, the way we've all got into this mindset, we can beat anyone. He said, it's possible that other managers will get their team thinking that way. You know, Mike Phelan might have Hull thinking that way, and so that will therefore make the game difficult. But what came across was he was basically saying it's not for the one to try and ever from this Liverpool side, and that's what's important. And the other thing that you haven't mentioned here that I think is very important, what I'm loving seeing at the moment, is feels already that there's a fear factor about Liverpool. Like, you looked at Chelsea and Chelsea's manager, and he talked about, Conte talked about before the game, this isn't a good time. Yeah. This isn't a good time to play Liverpool. Look at them. They're flying, they're scoring goals. I don't want to play them. And that was brilliant as a Liverpool fan to hear. And I think, you know, that's what Liverpool had in the past. That's what Liverpool, you know, when we get all misty-eyed about Liverpool, they had fear factor. And that's why week after week after week they got results. And you saw teams coming to Anfield and they barely tried. They were beaten before they got there, you know what I mean? And if we can get back to those days, absolutely brilliant. And you know, Klopp said the fans have got to play a part in that, and they have. Let's make Anfield absolutely rocking tomorrow, and we can beat these and we can continue this fear factor. Yeah,
fear factor is absolutely huge, and excellent point there with Conte saying before the game that, you know, it's the wrong time to play Liverpool. And when you look at Chelsea, they had actually a better start because they didn't have a Burnley in their system. So he shouldn't have been saying that, but he realised what a threat Liverpool could be. Go back and look at the Leicester game. Ranieri said pre-match that he knows that there's going to be so many problems for his side to deal with. Afterwards, he came out and said, we just couldn't cope with that. There was nothing we could do because they just had so much power in everything that they tried to achieve. And that's huge because not only are Liverpool believing it within the backroom team and the players and supporters, but opposition teams are looking at it and thinking, oh dear me, not Liverpool.
Well, there's something in there where both those managers, Conte and Ranieri, both pre-game and post-game, they're sort of trying to do a little bit of expectation managing, and if we're beginning to, Danny, get people doing a bit of expectation managing, then that helps. And there's another thing as well, which is what, you know, Ranieri's trying to drive at, and I think Conte's trying to drive at, is that it's about carrying different types of threats. And that's another big deal, is carrying different types of threats. And that's, you know, what we're currently able to do, both attacking from all angles on the one hand. We've now opened the scoring twice with set-piece goals in games back-to-back. The captain's blammed a 25-yarder in. That always helps. You know, it's this idea of, so you can't now let him have room on the edge of the box because you could go and do that again. And I think that's got to, what I'm trying to drive at it is that's got to continue. You can't begin to think, well, if we just sort this out, then we'll stop them. And I think that's what we've got to keep that going at every opportunity.
Yeah, it's a case of not having an over-reliance on either one player to score goals or a way to score goals. Like, it's not like, oh, we've got to hit the ball over the top to Sturridge to race through or something like that. We score all different kinds at the minute, and I think it's symptomatic of the options we've got up there now. You feel like he could play any of six players tomorrow, arguably, in them three front positions, and no one would complain because they're all good players who bring something different. So it's just a case of how he thinks is best to break a particular team down. And then they've got to react to that no matter which one of those players is there and doing it on the day. OK, this is the Anfield Wrap on Radio City Talk. After the break, we'll be hearing from Ben Finney, who's going to let us know what Hull have been up to, mostly grabbing unexpected results and all fighting for each other. And then we'll get back to how Liverpool should approach it against Hull. So finding out about Hull now with Ben Finney. Ben talks to us about Hull on a regular basis. It's been a bit of an unexpected start to the season, really, for Hull, Ben. I mean, you know, they've probably got a few more points than we might have gambled. At some point soon, you feel as though they're going to revert towards sort of averaging around 1 point a game. Currently they played 5, picked up 7. They get that big win on the first day of the season. Did okay against Arsenal and getting beat 4-1. They look like they're playing okay, as my point. They get the win last night, or when people were listening to this a couple of days ago, against Stoke in the EFL Cup. And more than anything else, before you even look at the points, you look at the results. You feel as though they're playing reasonably well, and they're very much fighting for everything.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, I think the results have been really, really positive, I think, as well. The defence has been really positive. You look at the clean sheet at Swansea, you look at the way they so very nearly got one against Manchester United, the way they were dogged against Burnley. Arsenal's the only sort of anomaly so far in the season where they've conceded more than basically one goal, really. But I think they are absolutely fighting for each other, and more importantly, I think they're fighting for the manager, or caretaker manager as he is at the moment still.
Very much so. He remains sort of the caretaker in there. I thought that'd all get boxed off by now, but there's all sorts of aspects going on. I think but it is that sense of togetherness. I think this is one of the reasons why. I mean, Arsenal get 4, but it comes after a red card. It comes quite late into a game. There is a sense of togetherness. This isn't a side that wants to see it. Everyone's digging each other out. Everyone's giving each other a hand. Yeah, absolutely. And I think they're being helped by Robert Snodgrass, who's really starting to prove his quality more than at any time in his career, really, at Hull. I mean,
he was okay last year in the Championship. I think now he's stepped up back into the Premier League. He's really showing the sort of player that Hull thought they were getting 2 summers ago before he had this nasty injury. But yeah, absolutely, as I say, it's just that fighting spirit that's really keeping Hull going. But if they can get out of this tough run of games in a fairly comfortable position, then I think things might be okay come the end of maybe towards Christmas time.
Okay. So you mentioned Snodgrass there. He was actually the man I was going to speak to you about as the danger man, really, for Liverpool coming into this weekend. He's running the show, really. He's got 4 goals from midfield so far this season, which you can't sniff at. You know, in a bit of a makeshift side where it's, you know, certainly at the start of the season when midfielders were having to drop back into defence and all of that sort of stuff. He's done the business really for Hull. He's grabbed his opportunity to impress.
Yeah, well, this is what Hull has been desperate to see since he joined, because he came with such a high reputation, and not just his form for Hull so far. He got a hat-trick for Scotland in the World Cup qualifier, so he's really proven himself to be a quality player. I think the worry for Hull is I don't think they'll be able to keep hold of him for that much longer, really. I think a higher club might welcome him for maybe in January or next summer, for example, but he's really proven himself to be a top-quality Premier League player like they thought they were getting, yes, definitely.
Okay. He's the other thing to point out as well is the injury that he suffered from and come back as well. I think that's the major thing. It's, you know, you feel as though he's making up for lost time, and I think that's the key thing. Isn't it? Again, you know, when you talk about these Hull players so far, you have got to talk about their character. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, he's shown tremendous character, but as you say, Neil, they all have, in the way that they've just battled against all these circumstances. I mean, with all the takeover stuff going on in the background as well, it can't be easy to focus on the football, but that's where feelings come in for such tremendous credit, and rightly so. I mean, you look at last night in the Cup, it wouldn't be seen as that great a winner, I don't think. If it didn't come late on, if they didn't get that 91st minute winner, I don't think it would be so lauded as it is, really. But again, that's a sign of character that they keep going till the end, and they managed to get the win in the end, so that was good.
It is good, and Henriksen's a player that they bought quite late on in the window, so it's good to see that he's, you know, stepping up and getting that winner for them there. Mason as well gets himself onto the score sheet. It is the feeling that, you know, there's a few of these lads who can begin to sort of, you know, to impose themselves now. That a lot of them were bought late. People thought that, you know, Hull, they didn't strengthen, but they've got that little bit of a boost. If they can get these players integrated, moving into October, moving into the next international break, then they have got more of a fighting chance of staying up than I would have given them again on the first day of August.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you and the rest of the nation, or the rest of the world, I should say, to be fair, but I think as well, if they get feeling boxed off, I think that'll be quite crucial as well, to make sure that they know exactly where they are going forward. And, you know, if this takeover business can be sorted out, then again, that's another bonus. But it's just, as you say, getting them through it, yeah, definitely.
So what sort of side can Liverpool expect to face? You know, the League Cup side plays there in the EFL Cup, and there are a couple of changes, as I said before. A couple of lads dropped in who haven't been playing. The side against Arsenal, at home to Arsenal, with Jakupovic in goal. El Mohammadi was in there. Davis, who's played really, really well this season, in at centre-back, and Robertson's in at left-back, and Robertson's looked good as well. Livermore got sent off against Arsenal, so he can't feature against Liverpool. Who do you think will slot into the back four there?
I'm just trying to think, really. I don't know if he'll put another midfielder in there, maybe. I'm not too sure. But I think it won't be too dissimilar to the side that he put out against Arsenal. The one thing for Liverpool is they've got to somehow get beyond Curtis Davis. And I think, to be fair, there is more of a chance of them doing that. But I've seen few articles about the game coming up, and this is more of a Burnley-type game for Liverpool than, say, the Leicester game they've had recently, or the Chelsea game they've had recently.
You think they'll just sit in all game?
Well, I think so. I think, you know, I mean, they might try and catch Liverpool on the counter, I don't know, but I think it will be a case of just Liverpool having to be a bit patient, trying to break them down, as you know, when they can, basically. I mean, I'm interested to see what sort of front four that Klopp will play, whether he'll go with Sturridge or whether he'll go with Firmino, or, you know,
what would Davis least like to face? Because, you know, I'm up on Davis's stats in that he's made an unbelievable, an absolute, frankly, ridiculous number of interceptions so far this season. You know, he's in terms of, you know, looking at those stats, he's way out on his own in terms up against the entire country. Really, having made 36 interceptions. So trying to think about what the opposition, what makes Davis comfortable. I get the impression there he's comfortable looking to read the game and looking to stick his foot out, maybe coming up against a footballer who'll run at him and look to turn him a little bit. Might be what he'd prefer.
Yeah, maybe so. I mean, maybe it'd be okay against the likes of Mane and Sturridge. I think it might be Firmino would be the one, because I think Firmino is very good at distracting players with runs, for example, which, you know, because him and Coutinho link up so well. So I think it might be him. So, Liverpool's pacier players, he might be able to deal with better rather than, Firmino's not short of pace, but he's certainly not the quickest in the front line. And I think as well, if they get Henderson and if it's Wijnaldum running in behind, I think that's where Davis might struggle a little bit.
And then looking at that midfield, as I said before, you're not quite sure how Hull are going to do this. It's interesting that he took Mason off last night with 20 to go, which means he might have one eye on him to make that work. But against Arsenal, he brought Mason on as well on around the 60-minute mark for Huddleston. Sam Clucas has been putting himself about all season, and then it's been Mailer and Snodgrass either side, and I wouldn't expect that to be any different. Mailer can play himself at right back as well. He's very much a workhorse, and that frees Snodgrass up, doesn't it? It's the idea that there's three in there who'll absolutely graft. Snodgrass will graft again, but he's got a little bit more licence. Yeah,
absolutely. I think another thing with Snodgrass is Liverpool just got to be careful not to give him any sort of free kick opportunity outside the box, because I think that's where perhaps that could be Hull's best chance. For example, say if they give a free kick 30 yards out, there's a very realistic chance that he could stick one in the top bin. So that's where they've got to be careful, that Liverpool have got to switch on and not give away silly free kicks outside the box. Otherwise, as I say, Snodgrass could really take advantage of that.
Also, then looking up front, Hernandez and Diamandi. Diamandi's looked a threat whenever I've seen him. I think he comes off with he's the one who suffers from the red card against Arsenal. So you'd expect him to get himself back on, and he looks like he can carry the ball. He looks like he can be pretty direct.
Yeah, absolutely. Both him and Hernandez have got pace, which I don't know if that's something that Matip and Lovren can cope with or not. I don't know, but I think if they can get them running, and then you've got Snodgrass running in behind, for example, I think that's how Hull could get in behind Liverpool, for example. I think, as I say, it's a very direct front line. But they can also, if Hull need to knock it long at any point, they can do that to both of them, because they're not short lads either. They're both 6 foot plus. So, Liverpool have got to watch out for those lads in the air as well. Okay.
So I'm going to put you mildly on the spot and say, what is your prediction? Do you think Hull can do a Burnley against Liverpool? Do you see Liverpool being a test of their patience as much as anything else?
It's a difficult one. I don't see Hull holding out. I think Liverpool just look too good in attack at the moment. I actually don't think Liverpool look as bad as people are saying at the back either. I think that's been a little bit harsh from what I've seen. It depends how long Hull can hold out, really, because last time Hull played at Anfield, it was 0-0, wasn't it? And it just depends whether they can keep Liverpool at bay. But Liverpool look stronger coming into this weekend's game than they did 2 years ago, for definite. But I can only see one winner. It's Liverpool.
Okay, good to hear from Ben there. Let's get back into the main show and into the main room and hear what everybody else thinks. Meatloaf, Dead Ringer for Love. Speaking of which, Gareth Roberts, how you like all that, don't you, Robbo? You like it when I do the songs. It just feels all. Oh, I wanted to mention that's Paul Woodson, who's a friend of mine, his mate, who's a fan of the show. Si married someone called Vix. I've done about 20 shows since that thing happened, and I keep forgetting to do it. So, well, in everybody who was part of those nuptials, I think that I see a long future for this one. So good luck with all that sort of stuff. All right then, Gareth. Mentioned the dominant stuff all before, and there should be that moment when Hull are coming out, and I spoke to Sean Rodgers about this earlier in the week, and there should be that moment where, for all your manager tells you, we've got a game plan, you can cope with these lads. There should hopefully be a moment where you're lining up and you're going, he's good, he's really good, he's really, really good, if you're Hull. And then it's about Liverpool putting that pressure on them early and throwing that doubt in the minds. And I think that's the, when you talk about the mental side of the game, I think we've seen football teams that begin to doubt themselves and doubt each other. We've seen it too often, I'd argue, in terms of the relative ability. Hull, we need to put as much doubt in their mind as we need Hull to begin to think quite early in the game, this is going to be the longest 90 minutes of my life.
Yeah, absolutely. I've not enjoyed this kind of narrative that's gone round that, this is a big test of Liverpool's credentials, Liverpool don't do well against teams that park the bus and all that. Forget that. Liverpool have played Hull 20 times in history, and they've won 11, drawn 7 and lost 2. We batter Hull, and we batter Hull tomorrow. And that's what the players should be thinking, that's what the fans should be thinking, and that's what Klopp should be thinking. And I don't mean that to go, just turn up and go, sound, it's box. I mean, turn up. Have 50-odd thousand there again. Have Anfield rocking. Have them getting straight into them from the first whistle. And just blow them away. There's players all over that pitch, as you've just said, that should be scaring them, and that will be scaring them. They will have watched the Derby game. And Firmino was having a game on his own at times, doing keepy-ups in the corner, and they couldn't stop him. And neither can Hull. Firmino's now actually a world superstar, I've decided. He's gone up a level. He's boss. And, when he decides that he's having a game on his own like that, there's nothing anyone can do. He's just in the corner. He's going, I'm skinning them. I'm blinding them with my mad white teeth. And you're losing this game, lads, and there's nothing you can do. And then if they try and stop him, well, you've got Sturridge over here, you've got Mane, you've got Lala, you've got all these players who can score goals. I wrote a piece which already is massively out of date, and I wish I hadn't wrote it, where I said, why are we bothered if Mane's the star of the team? Because what's wrong with that? That's out of date now, isn't it? There's loads of stars. We've got loads of players who are boss.
We have got loads of stars, Danny. You got a plethora of stars there, and I think I think the way in which I wanted to refer to Firmino before as well, in terms of the fact that you saw against Derby, you saw a real sort of, I thought more so than Coutinho. I think Coutinho's quite weird sometimes in competition, in games against sides who he's clearly better than. I think he sometimes almost struggles to get the pitch of the game. Whereas I thought you saw Firmino, he was just waltzing around the gaff like, isn't this easy? I could just do this all day. And I think but what he does do, the way in which he goes about that, is that it's not an indulgent thing. He's creating space for other people. He's posing problems. He's giving you things to think about if you're the opposition. I've never known a footballer who gives people more things to think about, because Leo Messi gives you things to think about, but that's because he's absolutely endlessly brilliant. For instance, he's giving you things to think about due to his brilliance. Firmino, it's part of the game. It's part of what he's doing. It's part of his actual makeup is, vacate space, create space, one touch here, no touches there, all this sort of stuff.
He strikes me as a much calmer and possibly more thoughtful footballer than Coutinho, in that he very clearly knows that he has a job to do and what that job is, and does it every single week. He knows that he's a foil sometimes for other players as well as his own brilliance going forward. Whereas Coutinho, baby, starts cutting inside and hitting them shots from 25 yards a lot, and you think, you're not really on the same page as everyone here today, mate. Whereas Firmino always seems to have the game in mind, the full 90 minutes. He doesn't necessarily play in the moment, I would say. He's got a very specific plan of what he's going to go out and do, and I think that's probably why Klopp likes him so much and is capable of playing him in all these different positions, because then the others can react to what he does. As you say, he makes space, so in a particular game he can make space for Mane to play quickly down the right, or maybe he can make space for Coutinho on the right to cut in and start playing little through balls and stuff. So he's pivotal to that movement up there.
We talk him up. He doesn't play against Chelsea. Liverpool win 2-1. These are good footballers all around. Absolutely.
I'm thinking about games where I remember there was we played Spurs, and a few of the players came out and said the game plan was to try and mark Coutinho out of the game, because they knew if you mark Coutinho out, then that stopped the supply. They failed to do that on that occasion, but it made me think, you can't have a team where the opposition are looking at you and isolating one player and thinking, if we stop that, then we've got these boxed. And I think Liverpool at the moment have so many threats, it's unreal. If Firmino's having an off day, which very rarely happens, even when he's having quiet games, they're quietly effective. People said Coutinho had a quiet game at Chelsea. He quietly bossed it. The amount of successful passes and stuff he made, the touches, the attacking third passes were incredible. And I think this is what Liverpool have at the moment. They've got Mane's pace, Coutinho's brilliance, that link up between Coutinho and Firmino. At Derby, the two of them just suddenly decided, we're going to score here. You can see from the moment Coutinho picks up the ball, looks at Firmino, plays it into his feet. Firmino waits for Coutinho to make that run. He's got two other passes to make, but he waits for Coutinho to get there. Plays it in between four markers perfectly. And Coutinho finishes. It's just that thing of, we're better than you, we're going to show you. And there's so many players on the pitch who can do that. You're even looking at the fullbacks, who are both able to keep the ball, use the ball.
It wouldn't surprise you if James Milner scores 2 goals from open play tomorrow.
Absolutely, yeah.
If that just happened.
And that's the kind of thing Liverpool have at the moment. And, we touched on it earlier. A lot of people think Liverpool are just this formidable attacking unit. They can be that attacking juggernaut that just slices teams open, but we've said they've added the set-piece goals. They can score from distance.
It's not just counter-attack.
Yeah, it's not just the counter-attack. It's not just the counter-press. They've boss position in every game. They want the ball. They want every single thing in the game. And I think it'll be the same again against Hull. It's just, like I said earlier, just having that patience to wait for your moments in the game sometimes.
Gareth, pick me a team. In fact, let me pick you a team. Pick me a goalie.
Pick you a goalie, Karius. Let's not mess around. He's bought him to be his number one. He's bought him because he plays football. He's bought him because of his style. He knows him from Germany. He's saying the right things in the press because that's what you do, because he knows how the press works and he doesn't want to slaughter someone who's in the squad and could still be useful. But yeah, Karius.
You both nodded at Karius. Both of you felt that Karius should start. Pick me a front three, Melissa.
Mane, Firmino, Coutinho.
You don't think Sturridge will start?
No, don't think Sturridge will start. He's not done enough consecutive training sessions, I think, whereas the others have all completed all their training sessions, so that would put him at a disadvantage. Probably come off the bench if he was due to train yesterday, so if everything went well in that session, probably due to come off the bench. But I think with Liverpool's attack, there's so much options. They don't need to risk it,
do they?
Yeah.
Not needing to risk something like that, in the time's gone back, not even that long ago, Dan. If Sturridge is fit, or nearly fit, you're thinking just get him on the pitch. Yeah. Liverpool don't need to risk it, do they, tomorrow?
It's a hark back to the absolutely nightmare-inducing days of Balotelli or Barini, isn't it? As backup if he wasn't fit. Whereas now it's not a problem. Ideally you would have him in the team. I think everyone would want him to be playing up front most games if he was perfect.
Certainly
fit.
Home against Hull.
Yeah, exactly. But then if you want a proper striker, you've still got Origi Innings. If you want to play slightly differently, you've got Firmino to play down the middle. So it's not if he doesn't start tomorrow, no one's worried, I don't think.
Give me a scoreline.
3-1 Liverpool.
Melissa?
3-0 Liverpool.
Gareth?
5-0 Liverpool.
Excellent stuff. This is the Anfield Wrap. Thank you very much to Dan, to Melissa, to Gareth, to Ben Finney as well. Loads and loads of talking there in the background. We'll be having a lovely time. Have a lovely weekend. Up the Reds. You know what the next thing to do is.